Daenerys Targaryen. She says she is the mother of dragons. But would you trust her with your kids? Her father was a maniac. She palled around with Dothraki terrorists. She asked the city of Karth for a government bailout. Then she lost 3 baby dragons after placing them in an unlocked wooden box. An unlocked wooden box. This Khaleesi wants to be queen of the 7 kingdoms, but can she be trusted? Daenerys Targaryen. Wrong for dragons. Wrong for the realm. Paid for by the Committee to Protect Dragons.
We don't know anything about him.
He was never really vetted.
Is he really the true-born son of Robert Baratheon?
All over the 7 kingdoms, people are asking the same question. Who is the real King Joffrey? The people of Westeros are hurting. Winter is coming. Crop yields are falling, and the price of fuel is going up.
The cost of peat moss is through the thatched roof.
And this young and inexperienced king takes advice from a whoremongering imp and has launched an illegal war in the north. What is King Joffrey hiding? This is not our kind of family values. King Joffrey. What a bastard.
What a bastard.
Paid for by the young Baratheons for freedom. Robb Stark. He's the biggest celebrity in the North. But his father was a traitor. He arrested his own mother. His bastard brother deserted the Night's Watch. And he couldn't defend his own castle. Worst of all, Robb Stark hasn't stopped the wildlings from invading our lands and taking our jobs. He even has an illegal alien for a nanny. And now he wants to be king in the North? King? Some people say he's really a wolf. Some people say he eats dead people. We can't wait until it's too late. Send a raven to Winterfell now and tell Robb Stark to go back home. Stop eating dead people and defend the damn wall. This ad paid for by Crossbows GPS.
You shouldn't have to pay to talk to the people closest to you, or the people who used to be. That's why Umbrella Wireless is proud to announce the new Friends, Family, and Recent Ex-Girlfriend plan. Now you'll get unlimited calls to your best buddy, your mom, or Cindy, once she realizes that you're seriously meant for each other and should stop screening your calls. Now the 30 minutes of agonizing silence where you're both afraid to hang up may drain your battery, but it won't drain your wallet. And you'll get unlimited calls just to check if she still cares enough to pick up, with no extra charges. With the Friends, Family, and Recent Ex-Girlfriend plan, your phone will automatically answer calls from your ex, because maybe she finally realizes that you're the only one for her and wants to get coffee sometime. Now, after lonely nights of looking at pictures of the road trip you took together when everything was great, your misspelled texts are absolutely free. The only thing you have to pay for is the booze. The Friends, Family, and Recent Ex-Girlfriend plan, because she wants you back. She just doesn't know it yet.
When you can't find anything to watch on cable, you get bored. When you get bored, you listen to radio cooking shows. When you listen to radio cooking shows, you invite a friend over for dinner. When you invite a friend over for dinner, you use twice as many beans. When you use twice as many beans, you expel deadly farts that kill your friend's dog. When you kill your friend's dog, your friend becomes unstable. When your friend becomes unstable, you're sued for everything you're worth. When you're sued for everything you're worth, you're thrown to the streets. When you're thrown to the streets, you devote your life to world domination. When you devote your life to world domination, you become an evil fascist overlord. When you become an evil fascist overlord, old friends plot their revenge. When old friends plot their revenge, you are shot in the back of the head. And when you're shot in the back of the head, you miss your jazzercise appointment. Don't miss your jazzercise appointment. Upgrade to Indirect TV. Go online or call 1-800-ERECT-TV.
Millions of Americans every day are shedding unwanted pounds by taking tested and proven Ultra Lipo Stick. Carbohydrates are bad. Our carbo-fighting antioxidant is good. Just listen to these satisfied customers.
My name is Gail, and I lost like 20 pounds on Ultra Lipo Stick.
My name is Jared, and I lost 46 pounds using Ultra Lipo Stick.
My name is Zach, and I actually gained weight. This stuff sucks!
Ultra Lipo Stick is safe and easy to inject. Just 3 doses 4 times a day discreetly underneath your fingernail. Listen to this.
I used Ultra Lipo Stick and suffered from side effects like uncontrollable greasy discharge.
Ultra Lipo Stick, it turned the armpits of all of my shirts orange. This stuff is crap.
Try it today and see some real results. Ultra Lipo Stick. Not available in stores. Results may vary.
Zinc Media. Feel the power of knowledge.
Most politically incorrect black man on the planet, Rod Eccles.
Hello, my fellow Americans. It is I, your lovable host, El Rod, coming to you live from my bunkerized home studio somewhere within the great granite state of New Hampshire, where the state motto is live free or die. It is not big government or bust, and I know this because, yes, I checked again today, as I do every day. It is the beginning of the week, Monday, May the 18th in the year of our Lord 2015, as we kick it off. The number that you can call this evening is 603. It's toll free, by the way. 603-835-3224. That's 603-835-3224. And if you dial that number, I will be able to see you and hopefully put you on the air with yours truly, me. Last night, I get home kind of late, and I'm able to, unfortunately, I did not catch the latest episode of, There Be Dragons, of, and if you, Game of Thrones, if you hear the parody commercials in the beginning, they're from the Game of Thrones. I didn't catch the latest episode of Game of Thrones because I needed to catch the finale. The season and series finale of Mad Men. And I know some people are thinking, oh, geez, he's going to talk about Mad Men. How the hell does that have anything to do with freedom and liberty and the Constitution and politics? Just trust me, folks. I mean, if you're new to the show, hang in there. You will see why I bring this up. And I will bring it back to you so you'll fully understand. Yeah, I'm a guy that just likes to tell you things in stories and to bring you some real life example, and even sometimes bring you some fictional life example, because we've been told that art often imitates life. Well, last night on Mad Men. Now, I got to tell you, I was a little bit shocked, a little bit disappointed where I thought the story was going and how it was going to end. I thought it was going to end a totally different way, and I'm glad it did not end the way in one of two scenarios that I thought it would end. Now, let me just tell you something. This is a spoiler alert here. If you have not caught the series finale of Mad Men, and you want to, you're probably going to want to tune out of this program until the bottom of the hour. Just telling you that right now. Spoiler alert. Because personally, I think that everybody that's really going to watch it for the first time probably has had the opportunity to do so. And if you haven't, turn off the computer. Well, turn off the program right now and go catch it. No, we won't wait for you here. We'll still be here when you get back. However, and that's the only time I'm going to tell you, because this is this program, Mad Men, better than most other period programs of late. And Mad Men takes place in the 1960s. Well, it ends. The finale ends up in like 1971-ish, 70, 71. But it's basically about the 60s. There were 7 seasons of the 60s. I think it started in like 62 or 63 or 64. But 60s. It's about the 60s. And I often look at the program and I think, we kind of look back at time periods and think that, it was kind of a romantic period. It was a lot going on. Men were still men. Women were still women. You could booze it up and have the 3-part martini lunch and just get your work done. Kind of like there was another romantic period, not the 50s, but the 40s, the war era. Yeah, from like 1940 to 45 people kind of think of that as being kind of romantic. Yeah, I know war being romantic, but the time period and how we view things and how movies and television programs have portrayed that era. Now, this particular era, Mad Men, they seem to be very accurate. Now, yes, the names of the true life characters that some of these, the true life people that some of these characters emulate have been changed. But you have to understand that it's based on what actually was going on in the 60s. It's not something totally made up. It's actually based heavily on, they've got it spot on in more than just the costumes. More than now, by the way, if you look at the suits of the men of this, they're not very different from today. Just so you know, furniture and things like that. Obviously, women's clothing is a lot different today than it was back then. But men's suits are still pretty much the same. I mean, the cuts are slightly different, but it's pretty much the same. Back then the waist was higher, than they are today, even in suits. So, but other than that, it's pretty much the same the styling. We brought back. I love this. The 60s suit with a modern 2000s twist. I think is an awesome piece of clothing. I think it has class. It has sophistication. It shows smartness. And the 60s were all about not being ostentatious or frivolous. I mean, the furniture had clean, simple lines. Cars, pretty much. The 60s began the clean, simple lines of cars, and they were well defined within their category. Your pony cars, simple lines, smaller, fast, nimble. Your big luxury cars, again, just boats on wheels, but simple lines. They were, of the day, they were beautiful family cars, Chevys and Fords and things like that. Again, simple, clean lines. Things were a lot more, we had more straight lines. 50s, you had a bunch of curves and humps and fins and all that kind of, a lot of ostentatious stuff on your cars. And your furniture was a little bit out there, was more rounded. And you get to the 60s, things streamline. Become clean, simple lines. That's a good thing. And we had a lot of other things going on in the 60s, obviously. We had Vietnam. That was terrible. But we had the moon landing. That was wonderful. We had a number of very very infamous, if you will, assassinations from JFK to Robert Kennedy to Martin Luther King and some smaller, lesser-known people. Very bad. Very bad. It was a tumultuous time. The decade was tumultuous for the United States. No doubt about it. There was a lot of change that would come out of the 60s. A lot of it not for the better. But a lot of change would come out of the 60s. And one of the things that came out of the 60s was this free thought, free love type of movement. And of course, it morphed and evolved into the 70s, into the power, the power to the women and the sexual revolution and that kind of thing. And I'm not going to get into that, but we know what happened in the 70s and the 80s. Sexually transmitted diseases exploded because of the sexual revolution. That was not a good thing. Free love was not free, we found out. It had a cost, a very high cost. And we're still paying that cost, by the way. So this whole notion that, that we're evolving into becoming more enlightened is not actually true, because we started this modern enlightenment age of Aquarius back in the 60s. It has not been very good or successful for not only this country, but for much of the Western world and the planet. But I digress, because I'm talking about Mad Men. Well, this is all part of Mad Men. Now, last night, it took a turn that I did not expect. Well, you know about Pete getting the Learjet job. Congratulations, good for Pete. He finally got the recognition and the cash that came along with that recognition that he'd been longing for. I mean, if you watch the entire series from season 1 to season 7, you saw Peter just grappling with not believing that he was being paid and being recognized for the apparent marketing and sales genius that he thought he was. And to a certain degree, he was. He was pretty damn good at his job. And for a while, he wasn't being recognized. And there were times when the most unlikely ally would sort of throw out a life jacket and a lifeline to Pete, and that was Don Draper. When they formed the partnership, the new ad company, and things were looking dire, and the partners had to pony up some money. Well, Pete didn't have that kind of money, and Don threw him a lifeline, and that forever changed their relationship. Pete saw something different in Don at that particular point. Sure, there was still contention later on between the two, but he saw something different. Their relationship became, for men of that era, a little bit closer. But Pete finally got what he was looking for. Now, we're left to believe that, as Pete gets on a Learjet back in 71, that he's finally made it and he lives happily ever after. I like to think that's true, and that him and his wife die together. And then we see Peggy Olson. Now, she too had been, we're coming out of an era where women were blazing the trail to be treated more equally. Her and Joan were kind of two peas in the pod, but very different. Very different. Joan was this buxom, beautiful, very well-dressed, very well-spoken, professional woman. Peggy was a little bit unkept, uncouth. She was a little bit naive. She, up until like halfway through the series, she was wearing more girly clothes. And then Joan told her, if you want people to take you serious, stop dressing like a little girl. We saw probably the person that grew the most, matured the most, was Peggy Olson. And she got to a point where she worked so hard to get people to recognize her ability, and people started to recognize her ability, and yet she did not understand it or recognize it or readily accept it. She was blind to it. I mean, she, in the closing moments, there's a gentleman that she worked with for years that you could see he pined for her, but she was oblivious to him, even though they worked together. And then when he just drops the bomb, you know, because Joan actually does something that nobody really thought she would do for Peggy. Because, you know, Joan was the person that would always constantly tell Peggy that, you know, you're being a little bratty, little 12-year-old biddy here. Peggy, grow up. She was constantly at Peggy. But then in the end, Joan is like, you know, Peggy, you got the talent. You got the drive. You got the smarts. I want to make you a partner in this new company I want to start. Me and you, 50-50. And for the first time, Peggy sees, wow, people are recognizing my talent and my ability. And then the bomb drops. And if you haven't seen, I'm not going to tell you who, when she's told that, I love you. I don't want you to leave. McCann Erickson. And Peggy realizes, you know what? I've gone through, she goes through her life with this guy. And she realizes, you know what? I love you too. Because she didn't pay attention to what was in front of her all along. Don Draper gave her, she started out as a secretary. Don gave her the chance, the opportunity to be something more than the secretary. She proved herself, but she never believed that she did. It was in front of her all the time. And it took two people in the last episode for her to realize that she had something all along that she had been wanting. She already had it. And she didn't know she had it. And of course, Roger, well, Roger's always Roger. Not going to change there. But, and Bets, Bertie, the shock, the horror. You know, a lot of people today will say, oh, no, she can live. No. Betty was given a death sentence. Back in 1970-71, if you got cancer, it was over 90% fatal. It was a death sentence. There was no treatment for it. You were done. She contracted lung cancer. Smoking, evidently, is what they're trying to tell us. Smoking cigarettes. In the 60s and 50s and 60s, Americans were heavy smokers, heavy boozers. And she gets lung cancer. She still has little children. This is devastating news. For the viewer, for the fan. Betsy's going to die. It's the end of the road for her. While Don is out trying to find himself. And he ends up someplace most unlikely. I mean, he gives away his car. He takes the blame for something that he did not do, didn't even think about doing, didn't want to do, didn't need to do. He takes the blame, but he still fixes it. And he gives away his Cadillac. I mean, he's just out there searching and searching. And then he gets to California. He's back to where he began, if you will, with his real name, Dick, not Don. And he is in this commune. You know, you can call the girl his niece. That's all I'm going to say about her. Not really his niece, but call her his niece. And he comes back because he thinks that he's missing something and that he wants to help her But really, he's looking for help himself. And he goes along with her to this retreat in Northern California. And all of a sudden, while he's there, he comes to this revelation, and he calls Peggy, of all people, he calls Peggy Olson. He's been missing for weeks now. He's at this commune. He calls Peggy Olson. Now, remember what I said. He gave Peggy a chance because he saw something in her that she didn't see in herself. And who does he end up calling? Does he call Joan? No. Does he call Roger, who could be arguably, throughout the series, Don's best friend? Does he call Roger? No. He calls Peggy Olson because she understands him. Even though she doesn't really know his true past, she still understands him. He calls her. He has like a moment, if you will. Not a heart attack. You know, an anxiety attack. He doesn't know who he is all of a sudden, or what he's doing, or what he wants to do, or who he wants to be. So he sticks at that commune, even though his niece takes off in the middle of the night and leaves him behind. So he sticks around the commune. And at one of the last scenes, you see Don in this commune meditating in the early morning. In the yoga pose. I still can't do that pose. I don't know how they do it, but wish I could do that. And I even took martial arts back in the day, and I could do almost a full leg split, but I could never get my legs to lay like that during the meditation pose. But there they are. He's doing the meditation pose, meditating early in the morning with the other members or other visitors. It's like a retreat. You know, flower children type of thing, all get in touch with your feelings, that kind of crap. And he's sitting there, just meditating, and all of a sudden, there's a big smile that comes across his face. And people are like, well, what happens to Don? Like, you didn't get it? Because the last scene, it breaks away from Don's smile to the iconic Coke commercial of the 70s and beyond. You know, I'd like to teach the world to sing. Perfect harmony. They're all dressed in the 60s, 70s flower children communal type of garb. In other words, Don created the ad. He figured out who he was. Even though his real name was Dick, he still figured out who he was, what he was best at. He went back to work at McCann and came up with that ad. That's what we got. That's what happened. Because people, they wrapped up the story for us to figure out what happens to them for the rest of their lives. And yes, that's an important type of thing, simply because, you know, you got to know where you are before you can start jumping ahead to where you want to be. You got to know what's going on inside of you. You have got to be awake to the opportunities around you. You have got to fully understand that in this whole program, this series from beginning to end was all about people struggling to be their best and to get the best. They didn't depend on politicians. They didn't depend on government assistance. They did, look, women needed to stand up for their own rights, and yeah, they did it. They didn't need government to do that. They did it. They became powerful women. They became business moguls from the 60s and 70s. Yeah, we had a lot of other stuff that came out of that, but that was not so good. But some of the good stuff came out of that era. And it was all about independence. It was about you figuring out who you are, not what somebody else was telling you. Today we have a bunch of politicians telling everybody, what's best for them and who they are and all that kind of stuff. And not in Mad Men. They were telling you who you could be, and you had to figure out what was best about who you could be. Plain and simple.
Hi, I'm George Foreman. Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
Call InventHelp today for free information. InventHelp can submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas. Call InventHelp today.
To get your free inventor's information, call 1-800-352-1609. That's 1-800-352-1609.
If you want to work until you keel over, have less of everything in retirement, or give back more of your hard-earned money to the stock market again, then just ignore me. But if you'd like to protect the money you save, receive a steady, predictable retirement income, and enjoy financial security for as long as you live, then listen to this. You can download a free report that reveals the wealth-building secrets Wall Street and the banks don't want you to know. You'll learn how you can get guaranteed growth, safety, and real prosperity without risking your money in the Wall Street casino, and how to get the money you need when you need it, simply by asking for it. This is the best way to have a 100% secure retirement, and know your money will last as long as you do. To learn more about this method, and to get your free report, go to 52security.com. That's the number 52security.com. 52security.com. Go to 52security.com.
Hurt or injured in a car accident? It can be hard to take the proper legal action after a car accident, but waiting can cost you more. The law requires car accident victims to assert claims promptly. You could lose out by simply waiting. Call 800-709-4667 right now to see what your claim could be worth when handled by a skilled attorney. With a lawyer fighting and speaking up for you, you could be entitled to a big cash award. Call 800-709-4667. That's 800-709-4667. Now it's fast and easy to connect with the legal help you need after your car accident. Call 800-709-4667. The call is free, but you need to act now before time runs out on your claim. You need a lawyer to fight for you, protect you, and get you the compensation you need and deserve. Time's wasting. Call 800-709-4667. That's 800-709-4667. Call now.
I considered suicide so I wouldn't put my family through all the pain.
Many of our warriors are returning home from the battlefield, only to face a new war as they struggle with devastating injuries. At Wounded Warrior Project, we understand. We're there to help.
Even though you think you're broken, you're not. It's the physical and the emotional healing that Wounded Warrior Project provides.
With a gift of just $19 a month, you can join Wounded Warrior Project. You'll help provide critically needed programs and services that rebuild lives.
Beautiful. There you go, buddy.
The ongoing needs of our wounded and their families will continue for many years to come. Now is the time to show your support. Call now or go online with your gift of just $19 a month and we'll send you this Wounded Warrior Project blanket.
It made me feel that there's people out there that care about us.
After this event, we can finally maybe start to heal as a family and move forward.
We need your help. The families are hurting.
For many of our wounded heroes, the greatest casualty is being forgotten. That's why your gift of just $19 a month is so important. Please, call or go online right now.
You shouldn't have to pay to talk to the people closest to you, or the people who used to be. That's why Umbrella Wireless is proud to announce the new Friends, Family, and Recent Ex-Girlfriend plan. Now you'll get unlimited calls to your best buddy, your mom, or Cindy, once she realizes that you're seriously meant for each other and should stop screening your calls. Now the 30 minutes of agonizing silence where you're both afraid to hang up may drain your battery, but it won't drain your wallet. And you'll get unlimited calls just to check if she still cares enough to pick up, with no extra charges. With the Friends, Family, and Recent Ex-Girlfriend plan, your phone will automatically answer calls from your ex, because maybe she finally realizes that you're the only one for her and wants to get coffee sometime. Now, after lonely nights of looking at pictures of the road trip you took together when everything was great, your misspelled texts are absolutely free. The only thing you have to pay for is the booze. The Friends, Family, and Recent Ex-Girlfriend plan, because she wants you back. She just doesn't know it yet.
listening to The Rod Eccles Show.
Now, the man who actually created the iconic Coca-Cola ad back in 1971, his real name is Bill Backer, B-A-C-K-E-R. And he gave CNN an interview. Now, Bill Backer actually did work for the company that has the same name in Mad Men, McCann Erickson, Madison Avenue. Now, for those of you who don't know, Mad Men stood for Madison Avenue Advertising Men. And it was men, because it was mostly a man's world back in the 50s and 60s, so they were called Mad Men. Because they were doing a lot of innovative things, especially in the 60s. Advertising was reaching its peak. I mean, today it was glamorous back then. It's not so glamorous today. I mean, today it's a doggy, advertising and marketing is a dog-eat-dog, very down in the dirt, wrestle mudfest. You know, it really is. It's nowhere near the glamorous type of, intriguing type of business that it was back then. It's lost its glitz. And it's become something more of a real. I mean, you've got different levels. You've got your corporate giants the corporate giants in advertising were really, really built in the 50s and 60s. I mean, the giants of today, they basically they just absorbed a bunch of smaller firms and partnerships, and they just started bringing together all of these different businesses as their accounts. And they would fight. I mean, to get the business was vicious. Which is why I talk about Pete being so good, because he was able to win business that people really didn't think he was going to be able to get, and he was able to bring in bookable billing business from important clients of the day. Coca-Cola has always been a huge account. McCann Erickson had Coca-Cola. Bill Backer was a person who came up with this ad. And he came up with it, according to his interview with CNN, he came up with it totally differently than Don Draper came up with it. Now, he's basically saying, he's denying that Don Draper is him. In fact, he stopped watching Mad Men. Bill Backer did stop watching Mad Men, according to him, after the second season, because he said he got bored with it. It turned into a soap opera. Now, I do not see it turning into a soap opera. I did not. What he said that he didn't like about it is that it seemed like the first season or two was really about the advertising game, and yeah, it was heavily about that. And then it started the characters began to be developed. So then it was more about the characters, not the ad agency. I thought that was a great transition. Remember 30-something back in the 80s? And I know some of you are thinking, geez, here he goes again with another TV. How does this have anything to do with politics? Hang with me, folks. I already made a comparison at the end of the last segment. Hang with me. In the 80s, we had 30-something. Now, 30-something became the show for baby boomers of the day. It evolved. A lot of people say it evolved into a wine fest. It was groundbreaking in the first season, and then as the characters developed and their backstories developed, and it turned more into a wine fest. I didn't get to do this when I was younger, or this, or you have to know I want to do this, and I'm not going to follow you here, and I don't know what to do. And to some extent, I watched it, and I can understand where some people see it as a wine, whining. Not the kind of wine you drink, but they whined, they moaned, they groaned, they complained a lot. in that program. They did. And, you can look back. But it was groundbreaking because it really, really reflected what that generation was going through. They thought that, they had so much going for them in the 60s and 70s, revolution, that they were going to have all of this success. And then they started to achieve some of that. They became the people that they despised in their youth. As middle-aged adults, they hit their 30s, they became the people that they despised in their youth. And then they began to complain about it. And understand, that is exactly what the baby boomers did. They became the people they despised. And then they complained and whined about it. And then they started, maybe if I didn't have to do all of this. And they went from, now follow me on this. They went from not, saying, do not trust anybody over 30, do not trust the government, to wanting big government. Understand? In the 80s, you had the baby boomer generation, the generation that fought to end the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. The generation that fought for free love and big hair and all this kind of stuff, not fancy clothes, but these crazy, wild colored clothing and everything, the psychedelic movement, drugs and everything else. And then they get into their 30s and their 40s in the 80s. And all of a sudden they realize they have just become everything that they were fighting against when they were teenagers and college students. And that's when all the whining began, because then they started thinking, well, it's not what I thought it was going to be, man. And then they started looking, well, maybe somebody else can do it for me then. So they go from a point of not trusting anybody over the age of 30 to being over 30 themselves, not trusting government, to wanting big government to take care of them. And then it grows from there. From wanting big government, even though they're having all this success, under Ronald Reagan, who is trying to shrink big government, he's trying to shrink it down and give them the opportunity, allow them to have the opportunity to expand their own horizons. And they do throughout the 80s. But yet they still complain and whine about it. And then we move into the 90s and we get Bill Clinton in office and they're talking about, we need government for this and government for that. And then we get this idea of Hillary and Billary care, the precursor to Obamacare. And all of a sudden everybody says, whoa, wait a minute. No, maybe that's just too big. We don't want that. But yet and still we keep electing the type of people who want to do that. Because they were out of the whiny 80s. They were whining and complaining because they became the people that they did not want to be. And then when they became the people that they did not want to be, they looked, instead of looking into themselves like Don Draper did that last episode to find out who they really were, they looked to the external and said, okay, maybe somebody else needs to help me with who I want to be or who I should be. And they looked to government. And then they wanted to grow government to take care of just about every aspect of everybody's life because, hey, they kept this whole notion that people are saying, well, I'm doing okay, but my neighbor isn't doing so well, is a bunch of BS. It's all about them. You have to understand, I'm sorry if you're a baby boomer. I'm not one, but if you're a baby boomer, I'm going to lay it on the line. You are probably one of the most selfish members of one of the most selfish generations we've ever seen until the millennials. Plain and simple. It's all about you, the baby boomer. And you thought that you could take away some of your responsibility so you could have that free love and free thought and free wheeling feeling that you had back in the 60s and early 70s. And you thought that you could unload all of that responsibility by having big government do it for you. That's how we got here, folks. Just go back and look. You can see the progression. You can see the progression of the Democrat Party getting farther and farther and farther to the left. Why? Because the baby boomers, who were the biggest voting bloc, were voting these people into office and re-electing them. They weren't looking to like Don Draper. They were looking more like 30-something. Don Draper was not a baby boomer. He realized that he had to find himself. And when he realized and accepted who he was, he came up with one of the most iconic advertising campaigns ever. People still sing that song today. It's the real thing. And then we get to the baby boomers. As they get older and older, and they're starting to hit retirement age, we're hearing more and more whining from them. Social Security isn't what we thought it was going to be. It's not paying for my retirement. Well, you've been told this since the 80s not to totally rely on Social Security. But what do? Instead of saying, that Social Security is becoming an unmanageable juggernaut that's going to bring this country down, you, the baby boomer, are talking about, well, we need to put people into office who are going to save Social Security. And we're told by the Democrats that the Republicans, all they want to do is kill it. They want to rob from the rich or rob from the poor and give to the rich, which is a bunch of BS. It is. Don't make me say it on the air. Simply because the baby boomers didn't have the guts to look within themselves to find out who they really were, instead of this fantasy of who they wanted to be. In other words, even though baby boomers became the people they did not want to be, they never really grew up. And so now their kids, millennials, many of them, are doing the same things that they did, and they're caught between a rock and a hard place. No, don't do drugs. Well, and the kids are turning it on. Well, you did. How can you tell me no when you did it? And you did a lot of it. And with a lot of parents, they're still doing it. So how is a parent who is still doing it going to tell Junior not to do it? But, kids may not be getting the greatest education in public schools, but they're not idiots. They can see. They can tell. They know what they know what it's like and what people look like and act like and smell like when they're high on pot or other drugs. They know. Parents think that they're hiding it. They're not hiding it at all. And so now these millennials are growing up, and they're going into college, and they're graduating from college, and what are they doing? They're coming out whining too. Well, there are no jobs for the degree that I want. I want this kind of job, and there's no jobs available. I can't. So I'm going to live with mom and dad. And now mom and dad is, the baby boomers. They're caught between a rock and a hard place. It's hard for them to say, well, no, you can't do this, when that is exactly what they fostered. Because they were too damn selfish to do something about it when they had the chance for themselves. And frankly, people who do not like the finale of Mad Men, this is what I'm finding out. They are lamenting the fact that Mad Men was a big, huge effing slap in America's face. We were a nation of doers. We got things done. When we got confused, we figured it out. We didn't rely on government. We individually figured it out. Because you have to understand, this nation is nothing more than a group of individuals. It's all about the individual, not about the group. The individual makes up the group. And if you have a nation of strong individuals, you're going to have a strong national group. If you've got a nation full of whiny, complaining, don't know who they are individuals, you're going to have a very weak nation. This is where we are. See, I told you I'd bring this back around, folks. This is where we are. We're in a position, the United States has never, even in the very throes of the beginning of forming this country, I don't think we have ever been as weak as we are now. We have lost our way. We've lost our vision. Well, how can you say we lost our vision? Because we elected a man who doesn't like the United States, who wants to fundamentally change it into something that we will not recognize. And yet we elected him, and then we re-elected him, and then we re-elected him. And you say, well, he's only been president for 2 terms. Well, how did he get there in the first place? Well, he had to be elected to the legislature in Illinois, and then he had to be elected to the Senate of the United States. So he had to be elected and re-elected, and re-elected and re-elected. And then we elevated him to the wonderful job of the presidency of the United States of America. And then he did such a terrible job that we thought, well, maybe he can't get any worse in the second term. So we'll give him another chance. If this were proper, if this were the 70s or 80s, we would have turned him out. Carter didn't get a second chance. George H.W. Bush didn't get a second chance. Why all of a sudden are we giving people that we consider to be failures a second chance in politics? By any measure, by any stretch of the imagination, Obama's first term, by national standards, based on the Constitution, was an utter failure. Sure, he was very successful at getting his own policies implemented in the way and his transformation of the United States began. But other than that, he was an utter failure. And yet, we gave him another chance. We didn't give failures a second chance before now. See, well, we gave the Clintons a chance. Well, Bill Clinton wasn't an utter failure. I know we may not like, those of us who are conservatives may not like Bill Clinton, but he was not an utter failure. He was not on the level of Jimmy Carter. He just wasn't. Look, there's one thing you got to understand. I'm honest about this. I'm not a big Bill Clinton fan. But let's face it, he does not go down in history as one of the, top 5 worst presidents we've had, probably. He wasn't that bad, thankfully. But he set a precedence, though. He set a precedence that if he can get people uncomfortable enough, then the country will swing the other way. And then if the country swings the other way, they're going to get somebody that eventually doesn't do something because of the lamestream media keeps pounding and pounding and pounding. That, the American people, the baby boomers, begin to see, well, he's not really doing anything for me. He's not taking this burden off of me, my own responsibility. He's not doing it. And so, boom. We swing to somebody who says, we're going to fundamentally change this country. We're going to take care of everybody. And then you selfish, self-absorbed baby boomers who raised selfish, self-absorbed millennials decided to elect Barack Obama. And then you decide, well, everybody deserves a second chance. You gave him a second chance to double down on what he already tried to do his first term. You didn't look inside yourselves. Americans did not look inside themselves in 2012. They didn't. You can kind of understand them having, a hissy fit and a tantrum and that kind of thing because, what our nation, the population base became, and go with Barack Obama. One term. Look, they did it for Jimmy Carter. But then when the crap hit the fan, every major generation previous to the baby boomers looked within themselves, made the right choices and the right corrections. Baby boomers, on the other hand, they continued their whining ways from the 80s and decided, well, we want somebody else to take care of us. And they reelected him. Now, I'm admonishing you. You gotta look inside like Don Draper, because there is no external answer. There isn't one. Draper was a hugely flawed character. His moral compass was bent like you would not believe because of his own upbringing and his own ambition. But then when the crap hit the fan and he's like, I don't know who I am, what I want, what I'm doing, where am I going? And he's reflecting, midlife crisis, if you will. He did the right thing, did an introspective, looked to inside him, even went someplace that he thought he never would find himself at this stupid retreat and commune. And boom, while he's sitting there meditating, one morning, it all becomes clear who he is. Through all the boozing, all the womanizing, all the lying, all the cheating, the backstabbing, all the blind ambition that he had, he saw clearly who he was, and he created one of the most iconic advertising campaigns ever. Because he looked inside. Anybody who has ever created anything great since that time period, still to this day, has done it from looking within, not going to some exterior force. Steve Jobs, he didn't look to government or some exterior force to build Apple. He looked inside. What do I have? What can I bring out of me to create the most iconic company, one of the most valuable companies ever created? How can I be that person to create that? It was Steve Jobs who said, it's got to come from me. Yeah, a lot of people looked at him and said, well, Steve Jobs was an ass. Maybe. Because he expected others to be as he was. And so if you were whiny, complaining, looking for external reasons and sources to become great, you were going to look at this guy who was internal as an ass. Because those two styles, those two beings, those two people are going to conflict. Look, I don't look to the outside. I understand fully that whatever I am to be is due to me, not what some government program can give me. And people who say, well, this black person and this, they benefited from affirmative action. Maybe getting their foot in the door, they did use affirmative action. But after that, Dr. Ben Carson, it was all him. Affirmative action may open a door for you, but it does not cause you to walk through the door. And once you walk through the door, it does not make you a success inside that room. You've got to produce and prove that you belong there. Plain and simple. This whole notion that things are external is wrong. External does not exist. Because when you try to make it exist, you manifest it in big. This is how people are so easily led into things like dictatorships and communism and socialism and fascism, because they're looking for external things to fix internal problems. Doesn't work that way. It never has in the history of mankind, and it never will. Mad Men was simply a reflection of all of that. And it came to a head in the season finale, and it was boom. People realizing that they were responsible for the choices they made in their life. And sometimes those choices led to cancer, led to death. And when those choices came about, they also needed to be able to recognize when they became a success, when they were trying for something specific, like Peggy. Folks, it's all about you, not about the government. So when you stop thinking government, that's when we'll be great again.
Daenerys Targaryen. She says she is the mother of dragons. But would you trust her with your kids? Her father was a maniac. She palled around with Dothraki terrorists. She asked the city of Karth for a government bailout. Then she lost 3 baby dragons after placing them in an unlocked wooden box. An unlocked wooden box. This Khaleesi wants to be queen of the 7 kingdoms, but can she be trusted? Daenerys Targaryen. Wrong for dragons. Wrong for the realm. Paid for by the Committee to Protect Dragons.
We don't know anything about him.
He was never really vetted.
Is he really the true-born son of Robert Baratheon?
All over the 7 kingdoms, people are asking the same question. Who is the real King Joffrey? The people of Westeros are hurting. Winter is coming. Crop yields are falling, and the price of fuel is going up.
The cost of peat moss is through the thatched roof.
And this young and inexperienced king takes advice from a whoremongering imp and has launched an illegal war in the north. What is King Joffrey hiding? This is not our kind of family values. King Joffrey. What a bastard.
What a bastard.
Paid for by the young Baratheons for freedom. Robb Stark. He's the biggest celebrity in the North. But his father was a traitor. He arrested his own mother. His bastard brother deserted the Night's Watch. And he couldn't defend his own castle. Worst of all, Robb Stark hasn't stopped the wildlings from invading our lands and taking our jobs. He even has an illegal alien for a nanny. And now he wants to be king in the North? King? Some people say he's really a wolf. Some people say he eats dead people. We can't wait until it's too late. Send a raven to Winterfell now and tell Robb Stark to go back home. Stop eating dead people and defend the damn wall. This ad paid for by Crossbows GPS.
You shouldn't have to pay to talk to the people closest to you, or the people who used to be. That's why Umbrella Wireless is proud to announce the new Friends, Family, and Recent Ex-Girlfriend plan. Now you'll get unlimited calls to your best buddy, your mom, or Cindy, once she realizes that you're seriously meant for each other and should stop screening your calls. Now the 30 minutes of agonizing silence where you're both afraid to hang up may drain your battery, but it won't drain your wallet. And you'll get unlimited calls just to check if she still cares enough to pick up, with no extra charges. With the Friends, Family, and Recent Ex-Girlfriend plan, your phone will automatically answer calls from your ex, because maybe she finally realizes that you're the only one for her and wants to get coffee sometime. Now, after lonely nights of looking at pictures of the road trip you took together when everything was great, your misspelled texts are absolutely free. The only thing you have to pay for is the booze. The Friends, Family, and Recent Ex-Girlfriend plan, because she wants you back. She just doesn't know it yet.
When you can't find anything to watch on cable, you get bored. When you get bored, you listen to radio cooking shows. When you listen to radio cooking shows, you invite a friend over for dinner. When you invite a friend over for dinner, you use twice as many beans. When you use twice as many beans, you expel deadly farts that kill your friend's dog. When you kill your friend's dog, your friend becomes unstable. When your friend becomes unstable, you're sued for everything you're worth. When you're sued for everything you're worth, you're thrown to the streets. When you're thrown to the streets, you devote your life to world domination. When you devote your life to world domination, you become an evil fascist overlord. When you become an evil fascist overlord, old friends plot their revenge. When old friends plot their revenge, you are shot in the back of the head. And when you're shot in the back of the head, you miss your jazzercise appointment. Don't miss your jazzercise appointment. Upgrade to Indirect TV. Go online or call 1-800-DIRECT-TV.
Millions of Americans every day are shedding unwanted pounds by taking tested and proven Ultra Lipo Stick. Carbohydrates are bad, bad. Our carbo-fighting antioxidant is good, good. Just listen to these satisfied customers.
My name is Gail, and I lost like 20 pounds on Ultra Lipo Stick.
My name is Jared, and I lost 46 pounds using Ultra Lipo Stick.
My name is Zach, and I actually gained weight. This stuff sucks!
Ultra Lipo Stick is safe and easy to inject. Just 3 doses 4 times a day discreetly underneath your fingernail. Listen to this.
I used Ultra Lipo Stick and suffered from side effects like uncontrollable greasy discharge.
Ultra Lipo Stick, it turned the armpits of all of my shirts orange. This stuff is crap.
Try it today and see some real results. Ultra Lipo Stick. Not available in stores. Results may vary.
Zinc Media. Feel the power of knowledge.
Most politically incorrect black man on the planet, Rod Eccles.
You know, the retreat that Don Draper was at in the show Mad Men actually does exist in real life. As much, you know, just like all the commercial accounts, that advertising accounts that they had on the show, they were real as well. But this is Big Sur, California. In the final scenes of Mad Men, they were located at an Esalen, or Esalen, E-S-A-L-E-N, institute-like retreat along the California coast. Now, Esalen, or Esalen, actually opened in the early 1960s on 120 acres along the Big Sur coastline. Now, you can go to this retreat today, a week-long retreat for a couple who stay in a private room or private suite costs starting cost is $6,700 a week. Now, a bunk bed in a shared room costs you about $1,400 a week. It's not cheap. But excuse me, Salem is a non-profit, tax-exempt organization whose former teachers include Joan Baez, Susan Sontag, and Deepak Chopra. So you know what type of retreat this is. You know, so now you know what Don was going through, what he was trying to attempt to do. And you know what the vast majority of Americans today do not do. Yeah, I know that they were kind of touchy-feely, about, how do you feel? And how does it make you feel? And the person would say, well, they'd say how they felt. And then the leader of the group would say, well, how does that make you feel thinking that or saying that? I'm thinking at it. I'm going to pull out my hair. What? What kind of nonsensical BS is that? But there's a point to it, believe it or not. And yes, some of you are going to fall on your face when I say this. I'm going to agree with them. I'm going to not. Read the Bible. God is internal. So believe it or not, they're being very biblical. to what ails each of us and this nation. To look for answers and solutions. Be what you want them to be. You're always going to be somebody else who's even more external. It'll fix the problem. No. That's a bad opportunist when they're taking advantage of you to elevate themselves. A good opportunist, a good opportunist does alternative to Obamacare. Well, and you got Republicans that run around trying to think, well, we need to come up with an alternative. No, you don't. That's the whole point. You don't let the bad opportunists who are totally external run the debate and set the agenda. You don't fall into their trap. You say, hold on, time out. Boom. No. The best idea we have is no idea. Getting the government out of it, allowing the individual to be able to handle their own health care themselves, between them and their doctor, nobody else in between. Period. That should be the idea. Look, we don't have medical externists, do we? No, we have medical internists. Why? Because everything happens on the inside. Seriously. I mean, even if you get skin cancer, it's going to affect your what? Your internal organs. Everything happens on the inside. That's why we don't have medical externists. We have medical internists. I mean, come on, let's face it, folks. The whole being of human nature. Look, animals. The left is so enamored with wild creatures. Well, do you think a wild creature ever sits around and says, "Okay, if we get together here, I want, I want the rest of the bear community to provide me with my sustenance." I want the bear community to be able to find me and provide me with a cave or some area that I can hibernate safely. No, each individual bear has to find their own way. They have to survive on their own. Because that's the way the entire universe is designed. And whenever there's an external force that comes to interact, if you look in the universe, it's always devastating. Hey, if an asteroid or meteor or whatever enters Earth's atmosphere and hits Earth's atmosphere, what happens? It's an external thing, and it comes attacking the Earth. It's not a good thing. There's devastation that's going to follow. But when the Earth is left alone to be itself and to contain everything and provide all the resources that are necessary for life on the planet, what happens? Life flourishes. But you bring in that external element, whatever it is, whether it be an asteroid or a meteor or a comet or anything else that comes in or close to the Earth, there is definite, absolute destruction. It's never a good thing. So why are we looking to the external when the universe understands internal is harmony and balance, external is chaos and destruction? Plain and simple. I don't know how else to say it, folks, but it is what it is. It is what it is. And speaking of internal versus external, we gotta, folks. If we look at the Middle East, Middle East is a prime example of internal versus external. We were the external force that disrupted Iraq. We went into Iraq. We're the external force, and we devastated them internally. And then, without rebuilding them internally strong, this president left them, unable to really keep their internal systems in place. And now we have a near total defeat of Iraq. The next president of the United States has got to go into Iraq. I'm sorry. We have got to go in, be the external force again, in order to fix the mess that we created by leaving before we strengthen their internal force. Because there's right now, Ramadi has fallen to ISIS. In fact, it was a terrible disaster and defeat for the Iraqi forces. Total collapse of the elite Iraqi units are routed in Ramadi offensive by ISIS, and that puts ISIS 60 miles outside of Baghdad. Do you realize what this means? It means that even Syria has not yet fallen to ISIS, but Iraq, the country that, we're the ones that were supposed to have created this new modern Iraq, is about to fall. They're about to fall. And this is due to the fact that we have a man-child as president who doesn't know how or doesn't want to stand up to these radical extremists. And you think, externalist. Externalist, Rod? Yeah, ISIS is external to Iraq. All wars are that way, too. You've got this external army or government that wants to take over a particular country. So they go into the country. And what happens after that? After destruction and devastation and death. The 3 Ds. Destruction, devastation, and death. And that's what's going on in Iraq right now. Destruction, devastation, and death. And it is due to our external issues. Because we weren't thinking about the people of Iraq. We need to get out of Iraq, man. Kind of like Vietnam. Get out of Iraq. This president said he was going to get us out of Iraq. Get us out of Iraq. Because we were thinking externally. In a selfish sort of way. Because we wanted the world to love us. And if we only capitulated to what those external forces wanted, they would all love us and everybody would live in peace and harmony. Well, evidently, somebody didn't give ISIS a Coke. Because they're not living in peace and harmony over there. I mean, look. No, well, here's a story from Hot Air. When ISIS began its attack on Ramadi last week, the Iraqi government threw in its elite units hoping to stem the tide of the radical Sunni advance and the overall targeting of Baghdad. Instead of pushing ISIS back, what transpired was a repeat of the fight from Mosul in other former Iraqi strongholds. A disorganized rout of Iraqi forces. So, if your so-called elite can't stand up to a bunch of ragtags who were not formally trained, I mean, let's face it, ISIS is not a nation, and these soldiers of ISIS are not all formally trained. And it doesn't mean that an informal force can't beat a formally trained force. Look, it's how this country got started. George Washington and the Revolutionary Army, most of them were not formally trained soldiers, but and they lost most of their battles. But when it came right down to it, they put a hurting on the formally trained British Army and Navy and won the war. Sure, there was a little bit of help from France, especially when it really counted. But you know what? Everything else in between was all about those men in the Revolutionary Army. It was about George Washington. There's a program on AMC called Turn. Now, I haven't watched a single episode of it yet. And maybe it'll be my new Mad Men. Now that Mad Men is over, I'm going to have to try to binge watch. If it catches my attention, I'll binge watch Turn. Now, I don't know how accurate it is, historically speaking. But the premise I see the previews. George Washington's in trouble. George Washington is this. It's never any good. And from what I know of American history, a lot of, George Washington was very good at retreating. And mostly because he had a bunch of ragtag men that were ill-equipped and ill-prepared to really handle, face-to-face, the formerly trained British Army. At the particular time, the most powerful military on the planet. It seemed like wherever the British went, they would win. So sometimes it behooved Mr. Washington to fully understand when it was time to retreat and fight another day. But he didn't look to the external and complain and whine. He's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I don't have all these guys. Somebody's going to come in and help. No. Sure, there were times that they sent emissaries and tried to enlist France to help them because, after all, France and England and Britain at the time were enemies, sworn enemies. So, the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of thing. And hey, let's face it, it's a good thing that France did that because, we ended up returning the favor twice for them in history. Although I think they've forgotten it. Yeah, France owes us one, actually. We saved them in World War I, and we saved them again in World War II. So we paid them back for the Revolutionary War help that they were reluctant to give us in the Revolutionary War. We paid them back in World War I by, giving them back their country and their freedom. And then we got one up. If you're going to keep score, we're one up on them for World War II. But I have no doubt that even if France didn't help that particular day that actually ended the war in the favor of the United States, or the revolution in Washington, that Washington would have found a way to retreat, fight another day, and find victory. Because it was all coming from within. It was all coming from their own personal beliefs. Every single one of those men. Even if they were not formally trained in the army, it was all coming from within. They were saying, we've got to find a way within us to do this. They were not depending on France. And we could see in many different programs and historical documents and things like that they were not depending on France. Yes, they were thankful and they could use France's help. France helped at the most opportune times, but they were trying to make it without France's help. This was all internal. Do you understand? This was not external stuff. External is always devastating in one fashion or another. And we're seeing that with our own people when we start looking for government, which is external to each individual, to solve our problems, to handle our problems, to give us opportunity. Government can't do that. That has to come from within. It's a hard lesson that we're learning. And I hope to God that we learn it in time. Because if we don't, it's going to take something very strong, like probably another Revolutionary War, to get us all to think internally again and to get rid of an overbearing external government. Don't doubt me, folks. Don't doubt me.
Hi, I'm George Foreman. Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
Call InventHelp today for free information. InventHelp can submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas. Call InventHelp today.
To get your free inventor's information, call 1-800-352-1609. That's 1-800-352-1609.
If you want to work until you keel over, have less of everything in retirement, or give back more of your hard-earned money to the stock market again, then just ignore me. But if you'd like to protect the money you save, receive a steady, predictable retirement income, and enjoy financial security for as long as you live, then listen to this. You can download a free report that reveals the wealth-building secrets Wall Street and the banks don't want you to know. You'll learn how you can get guaranteed growth, safety, and real prosperity without risking your money in the Wall Street casino, and how to get the money you need when you need it, simply by asking for it. This is the best way to have a 100% secure retirement and know your money will last as long as you do. To learn more about this method and to get your free report, go to 52security.com. That's the number 52security.com. 52security.com. Go to 52security.com.
Hurt or injured in a car accident? It can be hard to take the proper legal action after a car accident, but waiting can cost you more. The law requires car accident victims to assert claims promptly. You could lose out by simply waiting. Call 800-709-4667 right now to see what your claim could be worth when handled by a skilled attorney. With a lawyer fighting and speaking up for you, you could be entitled to a big cash award. Call 800-709-4667. That's 800-709-4667. Now it's fast and easy to connect with the legal help you need after your car accident. Call 800-709-4667. The call is free, but you need to act now before time runs out on your claim. You need a lawyer to fight for you, protect you, and get you the compensation you need and deserve. Time's wasting. Call 800-709-4667. That's 800-709-4667. Call now.
I considered suicide so I wouldn't put my family through all the pain.
Many of our warriors are returning home from the battlefield, only to face a new war as they struggle with devastating injuries. At Wounded Warrior Project, we understand. We're there to help.
Even though you think you're broken, you're not. It's the physical and the emotional healing that Wounded Warrior Project provides.
With a gift of just $19 a month, you can join Wounded Warrior Project. You'll help provide critically needed programs and services that rebuild lives.
Beautiful. There you go, buddy.
The ongoing needs of our wounded and their families will continue for many years to come. Now is the time to show your support. Call now or go online with your gift of just $19 a month and we'll send you this Wounded Warrior Project blanket.
It made me feel that there's people out there that care about us.
After this event, we can finally maybe start to heal as a family and move forward.
We need your help. The families are hurting.
For many of our wounded heroes, the greatest casualty is being forgotten. That's why your gift of just $19 a month is so important. Please, call or go online right now.
You shouldn't have to pay to talk to the people closest to you, or the people who used to be. That's why Umbrella Wireless is proud to announce the new Friends, Family, and Recent Ex-Girlfriend plan. Now you'll get unlimited calls to your best buddy, your mom, or Cindy, once she realizes that you're seriously meant for each other and should stop screening your calls. Now the 30 minutes of agonizing silence where you're both afraid to hang up may drain your battery, but it won't drain your wallet. And you'll get unlimited calls just to check if she still cares enough to pick up, with no extra charges. With the Friends, Family, and Recent Ex-Girlfriend plan, your phone will automatically answer calls from your ex, because maybe she finally realizes that you're the only one for her and wants to get coffee sometime. Now, after lonely nights of looking at pictures of the road trip you took together when everything was great, your misspelled texts are absolutely free. The only thing you have to pay for is the booze. The Friends, Family, and Recent Ex-Girlfriend plan, because she wants you back. She just doesn't know it yet.
You're listening to The Rod Eccles Show.
303-835-3224 is the number to call should you wish to join me live here on the Rod Eccles Show. There's a smoking gun out there. What did Hillary know, and when did she know it? That is the question being posed that seems to be there seems to be an answer for. And, of course, I'm talking about Hillary Clinton and a Secretary of State in Benghazi. Judicial Watch, and this is a WND.com story, Judicial Watch has obtained previously classified documents from the U.S. Department of Defense and the Department of State revealing that the Department of Defense almost immediately reported that the attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya, was planned and carried out by Al-Qaeda and Muslim Brotherhood-linked terrorists. But you still have, by the way, the AP out there trying to voice this. Oh, that was a video, man. The video was the problem. Speaking of the video, by the way, there's another story here. Where did I see it? It's in my paper pile. There we go. The video that supposedly, and this is from the Politico, by the way, the video that supposedly was the reason for the Benghazi attack and many other terrorist attacks across the globe around this time was taken down. But an appeals court lifts a takedown order on so-called anti-Muslim video. Now, a federal appeals court has voted to lift an order requiring Google to take down a controversial anti-Muslim video that led to protests against U.S. embassies in 2012 and was claimed for a time to have triggered the deadly attack on U.S. facilities in Benghazi. Claimed for a time. But we go back to the original story here on WND, and according to Judicial Watch, and they're obtaining previously classified documents from the Department of Defense. The DoD almost immediately reported that the attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi was planned and carried out by Al-Qaeda and Muslim Brotherhood-linked terrorists. And it wasn't due to, just a random response to a video, which at that time, nobody really had seen. It was... I think it had less than 100 views. So in order for people to get enraged, you got to have all these people. What is it? I can't remember. I think it was less than even 10. It wasn't many views. It was 10 or 40? 4 seems to come to mind. So either it was 4 or 40. In any case, that's not enough to get people to start marching in the streets and rioting and killing American citizens. Sorry, it's other people are going to have to see it. And people over there did not see it. Because, YouTube has one of those, they have the ability to tell who's watching it from where. They got to know stuff about who's watching what so they can target ads to them. Because that's how, YouTube pays for itself, as well as all these people are making money on YouTube. It's a lot of it's to do with advertisers. So a federal court ordered the government to hand over more than 100 pages of previously secret documents that showed then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and other senior Obama officials were given reports within hours of the September 11, 2012 attack. In those memos, the DoD described details of a plan 10 days in advance to kill as many Americans as possible. Now, for those of you in Rush Limbaugh's Riolinda, DoD is the three-letter acronym for Department of Defense. You notice how many three-letter agencies we have? Just saying out loud. We got a Homeland. Well, we call it Homeland Security, right? But it's still like a three-letter acronym. They had everything to do with terrorists from brigades of the captive Omar Abdul Rahman, the so-called Blind Sheikh. I know some people pronounce it Sheikh, but it's actually pronounced Sheikh. Now, on the video, a 3-judge Ninth Circuit panel held last year that the actress Cindy Garcia should prevail in her demand for an injunction against Google because she had a strong claim to copyright protection in her brief performance. However, the larger Ninth Circuit panel reached the opposite conclusions. Although we do not take lightly threats to life or the emotional turmoil Garcia has endured, her harms are untethered from and incompatible with copyright and copyright's function as the engine of expression. So wrote Judge Margaret McKeon. Wrote an opinion for a total of 9 judges on the panel. Privacy laws, not copyright, may offer remedies tailored to Garcia's personal and reputational harms. On that point, we offer no substantive view. Ultimately, Garcia would like to have her connection to the film forgotten and stripped from YouTube. Unfortunately for Garcia, such a right to be forgotten, although recently affirmed by the Court of Justice for the European Union, is not recognized in the United States. Ninth Circuit comes up with this. Saying, look, you participated in this thing, whether you got tricked, whether you think you got tricked or not, you participated. You could probably get, you got compensated for it in whatever fashion you agreed to be compensated, and you're stuck with it. And your small part does not give you the right to have the entire thing stripped and removed from the control of those who produced it. Plain and simple. Again, she's looking for, Miss Garcia is looking for an external solution to her own internal turmoil, her own stupidity. Look, she thought that this video was going to help her career. Plain and simple. There's only one. She wanted to be famous. And she thought this was going to, help her achieve that goal. Look, if you make a bad decision or a bad choice, own up to it and move on. But you don't start blaming others for your own problems. Speaking of blaming, folks, our external lifestyle, if you will, has bled over to our government. It's always somebody else's fault for your problem or your mistake, right? Well, government is no different. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, blames a technical glitch for violating a judge's amnesty injunction. Now, folks, I don't know how you can be a government agency, and then you blame a computer glitch for your failure to adhere to a federal court judge's order. Oh, no. You knew what you were doing, and you did it on purpose. Yet, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Jeh Johnson, I do believe it's pronounced Jeh, J-E-H. I do remember I heard his name pronounced Jay. Waits to speak about the agency's budget and cybersecurity at Homeland Security. But a glitch. If a glitch can cause them not to follow the law, what other excuse are they going to come up with for them not following the law? Seriously. So we have, there was a judge's order. The judge's order was pretty clear that, you don't get to decide for yourself what constitutes, legal authority. It's been pretty clear, what that legal authority is, and it is not by decree or by, policy. They argued, it's policy. Our policy is kind of, Loretta Lynch is, she was, one of the reasons why she should not have been confirmed is when she said that she would follow President Obama's policy and not the law when it came to dealing with amnesty for illegals. Well, no, policy is not law. Policy is not even near the level of the law. The law is the law. So you've got to go ahead and follow the law, not policy. When policy conflicts with law, you follow the law. And it sets a dangerous precedent when you say and decide that you're going to follow policy instead of the law. Now you've elevated policy to a level higher than the law or superior to the law. So the policy is that, according to Loretta Lynch, my office and department is not going to enforce any law that goes against President Obama's amnesty proposal or policy. Well, that's illegal because his policy is not law. Law has a specific way of becoming a law. Most, we should bring these back. They did come back briefly, I do believe. Schoolhouse Rock. Anybody out there under the sound of my voice remember Bill? I'm just a Bill sitting here on Capitol Hill. And kids learned how, the basics of how we get a law. Somebody in the House or the Senate has to write the law, and then the House and the Senate has to pass the law, or excuse me, they have to write the bill for the law, and then the Senate and the House of Representatives they each have to pass the bill, saying that they want it to become law, and then the president has to sign it into law, and if the president vetoes it or says no, he doesn't want it to be a law, then it goes back to the Senate and the House, and they can override the president's veto with a 2/3 positive vote in favor of the bill to become law. And in any case, if one of those two things happens, the president signs it or the House and the Senate override the veto, it becomes a law. And nowhere in there, and that's all per the Constitution, and nowhere in there is there anything about about presidential policy. You see, we're a nation governed by laws, not governed by men. And when you start talking about, policy is the equivalent or superior to law, well, now you're talking about a nation governed by men, not by law. And that is clearly not the Constitution. It is clearly not what the Founding Fathers intended. I don't care how you view it. There is no possible way that you can tell me with a straight face that the Founding Fathers intended for the president to have this sort of super constitutional authority and power. They did not. In fact, one of the reasons that we have a presidency that is a co-equal to the other two branches of government is simply because when they offered a kingdom or kingship to the person they wanted to be king, he said, well, we're not a nation of we should not be a nation ruled by men. We've seen that doesn't work. We need to be a nation ruled by law. And indeed, that eventually, even in England and Britain, they became a nation ruled by law because, they forced the king and the queens to abdicate more and more and more power and authority until they're just a simple figurehead. So even a kingdom such as Great Britain is actually a nation governed and ruled by law, not by men or women. So it's very clear what the Founding Fathers wanted here. They didn't want a king or a queen. They didn't want an emperor. They didn't want a potentate. They didn't want a Caesar. They didn't, they wanted a president, duly elected by the general populace that was legal to vote in this country. That's it. So in order to get to that, you have to be a nation that is governed and ruled by law, so that no matter who the ruler or president is, should not be a ruler, but Obama thinks of himself as a ruler. Whoever the president is, the law doesn't change. And it cannot change on a whim. Policies can change. How they go about doing certain things and approaching certain things, especially on foreign affairs, that can change from president to president because that's not set in the law. But a policy as far as what laws you're going to follow and what laws you're going to ignore, no, that is not legal. Not legal. You don't get to choose which laws that you're going to uphold. That's not the constitutional way. And I don't care how you slice it and dice it, you can't tell me otherwise. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. Well, remember the O.J. Simpson trial, murder trial. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. Well, this doesn't fit. Policy superseding law. And, this is what the DHS and Johnson was trying to do. He was trying to supersede law by adhering to President Obama's policies on illegals. But that's not the law. The law dictated that Mr. Johnson, Secretary Johnson, do his constitutional duty and handle within the legal limits of the law all the illegal immigrants that they come across. And when a judge decided, Obama cannot by fiat just decide to change the law through an executive order. So, Department of Homeland Security, you have to follow the law and you have to forgo and forget about Obama's policy. And yet the Department of Homeland Security decided, we're going to just follow the president anyway. And then when they get caught, they're going to say, oh, my word, there was a glitch in the program, the computer program, that we didn't recognize at first that kept us from doing our job that we're supposed to do legally. And, we were just going by things. Now, I'm sorry, you have a federal judge that tells you that you can't do it, and yet you still do it anyway, and then you're going to blame a computer glitch for the reason why you still do it when you shouldn't have done it in the first place. I mean, they're looking for an excuse because they got caught. And the funny thing is that this administration, people in this administration get caught all the time, but unfortunately, none of it seems to be sticking to Obama. I don't know, we got people, patriot after patriot and supposed patriot after supposed patriot, a bunch of people from all different walks of life, socio-economic walks of life, and even ethnic backgrounds walk of life, have been calling for the impeachment, ouster, and removal of this president as president. So this isn't about a singular event. This is not a singularity event. This has happened before with Obama. Obama always trying to, outsmart, outthink, whatever. All the people that are trying to keep him in check. Well, let's face it, he's not that smart. But, you can say what you want, but Obama really isn't all that smart. And the point is that this man needs to be put in check. And we don't have those in power on the Republican side who are in the leadership who seem to be willing to do that. And this is a glaring example what do you do with the Department of Homeland Security Secretary when he says, well, it was just a glitch that we weren't keeping the judge's orders? Well, you know what you're doing. You know that, in order to not follow the judge's order, you have to be following Obama's policy. And you know that the judge said, no, you can't do that. So, whether you have it in your computer or not, you got to know that you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. So I'm sorry if, but the American people seem to buy, well, I don't know if they actually buy it. The lamestream media seems to think that we should buy this kind of malarkey, this kind of BS. Absolutely amazing. It all stems from arrogance, folks. The arrogance that they think that they have the right to rule over you, not to govern, to rule over you. Just like Hillary. Hillary now is running around and she's, not answering questions of reporters because she thinks that she's a ruler and not looking for permission from the electorate to govern them. No, she thinks that she can do... She's taking a cue from Obama because, he thinks that his crap don't stink and he can do whatever he damn well pleases. Because I'm the president. Buck stops here. I'll take responsibility. And then when something goes wrong, he's the first person that says, well, it wasn't my fault. I didn't do that. Think about it. This guy is constantly saying that he's the president and that he's ultimately responsible. But whenever the responsibility starts to fall on his shoulders, he's like, hold on, not my fault. And he comes up with an excuse. Somebody once said, if you'll use any excuse, then you'll use any excuse. Plain and simple. It's as, plain as lighted day and night, light and night and day, that type of thing. We're supposed to be a nation governed by law, not ruled, governed. We're not a nation ruled by men. We're a nation governed. I don't know how many times I have to say this, because law, being governed by law, means that it's all internal now. When you want to be ruled by somebody, such as a king or a Caesar or a potentate or a dictator or what have you, this is an external factor that comes into your private world and private life and screws everything up. Hello, Obamacare. A lot of people thought, well, we don't want Obamacare, but he says this is going to be the new thing, the new wave. That everybody else around the planet's got this thing, so maybe we should. And then they get it because it's an external thing, and then they get it, and they realize, well, Jesus, this is clashing and destroying their internal belief of what healthcare should be, and then they throw their arms up because there's nothing they can do. They think because now they're not being governed, they're being ruled. That's a sad thing. Hey, folks, we're out of time for today. We will be back here tomorrow, same bat time. Same that channel. I'm Rod Eccles. This has been the Rod Eccles Show. I'm out.